Hello and welcome to Otterwood Cottage, where we're building a brand new small holding in the heart of the Lincolnshire countryside. I'm Emma and we're delighted to have you along with us. Today you're coming along with me for what's going to be a bit of an experiment on the small holding. Now, I've been reading about chaos gardening for quite some time. And it's either called chaos gardening or polycultures, depending on which site you read. But effectively, the principle is that instead of planting things in neat rows or bringing things on in cell trays and then planting a whole row of turnips and a whole row of carrots, instead we treat the bed a bit more like nature would and plant a mix of seeds of different varieties together and allow what will grow to grow. And the theory behind doing this is that, first of all, the plants should work to protect one another because monocultures, planting all the same thing together, can create difficulties with either pests or weather or soil type or a whole variety of weed competition, a whole variety of things that can affect your growing. And the wisdom goes that by planting a polyculture, you can start to try and avoid some of those pitfalls because you allow the plants that are the strongest to grow because they're competing with one another, so the strongest ones grow. They create protection for one another because you have different types of plants, some sending down roots, some leafy, some tall, some small, so they provide shade and shelter. And because there isn't just one type of plant, if you're lucky, then your polycultures will mean that pests are less likely to be attracted because the smell of the thing that they might be attracted to is masked by other plants around them. It also, from lots of what I've seen in my research, looks beautiful. It looks lush, it looks full, and it just feels like something that's really exciting and that we'd like to try. Now, I have been reading about it for some time. We have never tried it before, partly because the old guard at our allotment were already fairly openly suspicious of us with our newfangled no-dig ways. So had we started just casting seeds about willy-nilly, I think we may have been chucked off the allotment. But for a more serious reason, I think we were also just learning and finding our way, and so we were doing things a little bit more traditionally, although we were pushing the boundaries of traditional allotmenting in some ways. We also did keep to a fairly traditional idea of certain parts of the bed being for certain things. So this is a real experiment for us. It may work brilliantly, it may be a disaster, but the joy for me of gardening is trying this stuff, and if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. Seeds are relatively cheap in the grand scheme of things, and so we're going to give it a go and we're going to see. So I've built this brand new no-dig bed. I've just done this in the last 45 minutes or so, and I'm going to talk you through the combinations of seeds that I have put together. And I spent some time doing a little bit of research and pre-mixing my seed combinations into packets. So this is each of these packets has a mix of different seeds in. Now, if you're somebody who likes labeling things and to know exactly where stuff is and what's going to grow where, and you want to go out and harvest all of your onions in one go or all of your carrots in one go, then this is definitely not a method that's going to work for you. We're very much experimenting this year. We are not trying for full self-sufficiency, and I will do a video at some point on our approach to self-reliance and self-sufficiency here, but that's not what we're aiming for. What we're aiming for is just to learn about our land this year, to learn what the climate's like, to learn what our soil is like, our situation, what grows well, what doesn't. And so we're growing a whole host of different things in different ways, in different combinations, to see what works and what doesn't. And over time, hopefully, we'll get better at this, and this year might be a total disaster, and that's okay. So our first combination, I've got 8 combinations that I'm going to plant in this bed, and very helpfully the polytunnel structure divides this bed into 4 for me. So I'm going to roughly do half of each bed with each packet of seeds mixes that I've got to sow. And the intention is that these are actually going to be multi-sown. So I'm not going to sow all of the seeds in this packet. I'm going to succession sow. So I had been planning with this packet to sow in weeks 2, 3 and 4 of April. We're already in week 3 of April, so I missed the boat on that because we didn't have time to build this bed. So I will probably do week 3, 4 of April and week 1 of May. So we're going to plant this bed up completely with our 8 different mixes. Sow it, not plant it up. And then next week I will build another bed and we'll repeat the process until I've used up all of the seeds in each of my packets. And the reason for that is so partly so that we've got things coming to harvest time at different times, and partly because we are still on that boundary of frosty weather and better weather. And so by not sowing everything at once, we are hedging our bets that the weather will warm up, and if this sowing doesn't work particularly well, then hopefully the next one will. So our first pack is a really busy pack of lots of different types of seeds, and I've called it a root focused pack with some light canopy support. So this one has got in it 2 types of carrot, muscard and touchon, some French breakfast radish, some Tokyo cross turnip, some tender and true parsnips, tonda masona spring onions, and some Dutch mammoth dill. And the reason I've put this combination together is that the carrots, the turnips and the parsnips should all grow down. The spring onions and the dill will provide a little bit of cover, but not too heavy in terms of the canopy they'll create, which so that the leaves from the carrots and the parsnips will still get enough light to do what they need to do. And the radish will grow super quick and be harvested quickly to make room for then the other items to grow. So I've done a little bit of research. I've used some AI to help me. Please don't unfollow. I know some of you hate the use of AI, but I have used it to help with putting these combinations together. But the main thing that's driven the combinations has actually been what seeds I had and when they needed to be planted. And then I was kind of moving seeds around and choosing different groupings on the basis of what I had in the box and what I wanted to get planted out at different times. So this is our first group, and I'm going to roughly just by eye mark more or less halfway down the bed. Now, I'm not going to give any space between the plantings, because if some of what's in pack A mixes with pack B, that's fine. That's all part of the kind of polyculture approach. So I'm going to lightly cast these seeds across the space. I'm going to sprinkle some light compost over the top. Once I've done all 8, I'm going to water them in, and then I'm going to protect them from pests, and that is going to be that. So this is the reason it's, as well as polycultures, it is also referred to as chaos gardening, because it's pretty windy and some of my seeds just blew away then, because it is pretty chaotic. It's just a case of casting seeds across a space with no real thought as to what goes where. I'm going to try and do this to show you, but protect them. A mix of all different seeds in my hands there, and I'm just going to cast them across the space. The wind is helping to send them all over the place. So not too thick, not too thin. I'm going to go for a few more. I want about a quarter of this pack sown, which I'm just doing by eye. I think that's roughly it. And now I'm going to take some more compost to cover it over the top. Now, as you've seen from my other videos, this is not the only way we are sowing. I'm doing plenty in cell trays. I've got plenty of areas which I'm going to do much more traditionally, have things in rows, or certainly one type of thing altogether. Our kitchen garden beds, although they're not going to be monocultures, they will be polycultures, in that there'll be lots of different things in the same bed. They are going to be much more planned in terms of taller things at the back, shorter or trailing things at the front, so that it's a bit more kind of thought through and planned, whereas these really are sow and go. I'm going to pat that down. I think they're all pretty well covered, and I've got to admit, it is making me feel a bit funny. I am a label and a list person under normal circumstances, and so having just scattered those at random and not really being able to label them up with what's here, although I can say it's group A of my chaos beds, so I know roughly what should be in that space, but I do feel a bit nervous about it. I feel a bit strange having done it. Anyway, let's move on to our second pack in the second space. Okay, my second pack of seeds, which is kind of leafy, quick growing greens, has got 3 types of lettuce or leafy greens: cultivated rocket, Osterley lettuce and red iceberg lettuce. It's also got some green purslane, which is a green, quite a crunchy green that you can use in salads, but also gives good ground cover and should help to retain some moisture on this bed. And then it's got a few poached eggplant seeds, because I just think they're really pretty. They make me smile, and also they should bring in some nice beneficial pollinators to the space. So that's my second mix. Tuck that under there so it doesn't blow away. And we're going for exactly the same process. So it's a bit windy today. It's not the ideal day to be sowing tiny little seeds probably, but then it is supposed to be chaos, so I'm just leaning into that. Okay, that one went a bit quicker than the first. So same again, I'm going to cover them up, and whilst I'm doing this, you might notice at the end here that we've cheated on the cardboard front for our no-dig beds. Now, we had found a really good source of cardboard at a local bike shop, but local in our circumstances is still a 25-minute journey, and there's only so much they could supply in any one go, only so much we could fit in the car, and it was also, 45-minute round trip hour by the time you've loaded up, every time we wanted cardboard. And then there was the time that needed to be spent in cleaning the cardboard up, getting the staples and the out and the sellotape off and so on. And I never ever thought in my life I would buy cardboard. I'm actually quite shocked by us making the decision to do it, but not having enough cardboard and the time it took to collect, clean and then lay out, because the nature of the types of cardboard you get in box form mean that it doesn't just roll out beautifully and quickly and easily, meant that we had to have a bit of a rethink, because we're hitting crunch point with, we need cardboard for so many things. We've got pathways that we're continuing, we need loads of cardboard to protect the trees, we need cardboard under our beds, and it was becoming a really limiting factor that we didn't have enough of it. And there was also a kind of reality around, as much as we're getting free cardboard and we're recycling cardboard, both of which are important things to us, we were also using quite a lot of fuel to drive to the bike shop to collect it on a kind of weekly or bi-weekly basis to collect enough cardboard, which meant that we were spending money on fuel and not being very environmentally friendly with the fuel we were using. So you kind of were damned if we did or damned if we didn't. And I happened to be on everybody's favourite online shop, on the Amazon store, and saw these big rolls of corrugated cardboard that you can see at the end here were on offer at £25 for 75 metres of cardboard. And we did the maths, and actually by the time you factor in everything I've just said, about the cost of the fuel, the time it took, the cleaning up, the limiting factor, and what it was kind of costing us in, not monetary terms, but in stress is probably too strong a word, but in kind of brain capacity and headspace to try and figure out how we could get all the things done we needed to do in the time we had, without having the cardboard to hand immediately. It kind of became a no-brainer to just bite the bullet and have some fresh cardboard ordered. I'm not hugely proud of it, but it is what it is. So what we always say when we're thinking about projects, there are 3 things you always want when you're doing any project. You want it quick, you want it high quality, and you want it cheap, or preferably free in our case. But the reality is you can only ever choose 2 of those things. So you can have it quick and high quality, but then you have to pay for it. Or you can have it quick and cheap, but then you're going to sacrifice the quality. Or you can have it high quality and free or cheap, but it's going to take you a lot of time. So what we were doing with the gathering of the cardboard meant that we were creating high quality beds, really good quality no-dig beds. So we had the quality and we had the free, but what we were sacrificing was the time. And so by doing this instead, what we've done is prioritised the quick and the high quality, and we've sacrificed the free. And that is a sacrifice we make on every single project we do here. We are making a sacrifice between always choosing which of those 3 things we don't get to have. So with the rabbit fencing, for example, we could be getting that in much quicker if we were to hire a digger or some labour to come and help us. But we're sacrificing that because we don't have the funds to plough into that, because it's a big project. But we could sacrifice the funds to buy this cardboard. So there you go. What do you think? Would you ever buy cardboard? Are we completely mad? Right. Our third mix is beets and chard. So it's a mix of 3 different types of beetroot: white albino, sanguina, golden Detroit, and 2 types of chard: leaf beet chard and fire fresh chard. I love all of these. They are absolutely delicious. I've grown them all before. Some of these are older seed. The beetroots in particular are old seed, and so may or may not have great germination rates, but I had them, and whilst I was doing this chaos method, I figured, why not just try? So these are plants all from similar family and should work together quite nicely, but won't compete too much with one another. Now normally in the past, when I've grown beetroot in particular, I have multi-sown it, which is where you kind of clump, if you don't already know, where you kind of clump 4 or 5 together. So I would have started them in a cell tray and clumped 4 or 5 together and allowed them all to grow on, not thin them out. And they grow really well like that. So they grow close together and you pull out the largest of the group. If you follow Charles Dowding, you'll know all of this. And then just allow the others to grow on. And so I suspect with this grouping that something similar might happen, in that if they are close together, I can see, for example, at the back there where I've scattered, I've got a group there that are pretty close together. But I feel okay about that because I've grown this type of plant, beetroots. Also do it with turnips and onions and radish, all kinds of plants that I plant that way in the past. So if they are close together, I know that they don't compete with each other too much. They will just grow, and some might get bigger than others, but then they're the ones you harvest and you let the others grow on. Now I'm excited about this bed here because these are some of my favourite things to grow and eat in here. Okay, 3 down. let's move on to the next one. So in this next group, I've just got 3 plants, and they're all pollinating attractors. So in the middle of the bed, roughly, we're going to have a good mix of borage, some Chinese forget-me-not, and a flower called Godetia grandiflora. The variety is Grace. Now again, these were just seeds I had. The borage is new, but the Chinese forget-me-not and the Godetia grandiflora were seeds that I had in the box. The Godetias I'd been growing for, or the plan had been to grow them for cut flowers in our home garden last year, but then we ended up deciding to sell and move house, so we didn't do that. So I've not grown those before. Borage I bought especially because we don't have any on the property, and it's just so fantastic on a number of fronts for the pollinators, but also, I mean, it grows like mad. It will potentially take over in this bed if we don't keep on top of it. But I want plenty of borage around the property. I've just dropped a load of seeds on my towel. I'll pick those up in a minute. Because it is absolutely fantastic in compost and to make liquid fertilizers. It's some of the best stuff for making liquid fertilizer for your tomatoes, and I have made a little short of making liquid fertilizer on a small scale, but you can do it on a big scale too, in big drums. And borage is beautiful, attracts pollinators, looks fantastic, and also makes amazing natural fertilizer. And so I am excited to have some growing, and especially having it growing right next to the polytunnel, so that I can have a big drum of water either in the polytunnel or at the end here, and very easily be making liquid fertilizer out of the borage, which will then feed my tomato plants and the other plants in there, the cucumbers and the aubergines and the peppers and so on. So it's going to be absolutely perfect being here, and should bring in lots of fantastic bees and other things that we want in our garden. Okay, as I'm going, I'm getting less weirded out and more confident with the random scattering of seeds. It doesn't feel quite natural, but I'm getting there. Right, 4 more combinations to go. Let's move on to the next. The next bed is a bit of a aromatic herb bed. So in here I'm putting coriander, chervil, curly parsley, Russian tarragon and garlic chives. I'm also growing all of these herbs in cells in the conservatory in what has become entirely by accident, if you look at my last video, a chaos cell tray, entirely by mistake. But that's because all of these herbs are also going to be going into the kitchen garden beds in various combinations, where I'm going to be a bit more deliberate about where I'm planting them. So we've got extras here. You can never have too many herbs, and if nothing else, they will smell and look delightful, even if we don't end up harvesting quite so much from this bed, and they'll bring in the pollinators. Now this was an interesting packet because it's the first one I've opened where the mix of seeds are much more varied in the size and weight. So I've got some, the coriander seeds in particular, which are bigger and heavier than a lot of the other seeds, which meant when I was trying to tip them out, I was just getting handfuls of coriander seeds and everything else was staying in the packet. So I had to tip the whole lot out, sprinkle out of my hand and then tip back in, which means this area is even more chaotic because some of them have blown away in the wind. and probably landed elsewhere on the bed. And I'm going to be okay with that. It's all okay. This is chaos gardening. Okay, let's cover these ones up. Okay, in my 6th bed, I've got some edible flowers going in. So we've got some giant goosefoot, some calendula, and some nasturtium. And I've got the same issue with this pack, that I've got some large seeds and some teeny tiny ones, and so the teeny tiny ones are not coming out. So I'm going to sow these bigger seeds, and then I'm going to get the big ones out separately, the little ones out separately. Now I love marigolds and I love nasturtium. And again, the nasturtium could well have a tendency to take over this bed if we give it a chance. But part of me thinks that's okay, because they're beautiful. They should, a lot of these should also self-seed, so if I really wanted to let this bed become a true chaos bed, I could, year on year, just leave it to do its own thing, let it self-seed and see what grows well and what doesn't. I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. Let's see how I feel at the end of the season. We certainly will let lots of this go to seed when the time comes, because it's so beneficial for the wildlife. But whether we'll then twist it all out and start again with the bed, or whether we'll allow it to do its own thing, is yet to be decided. Let's see how successful it is. So my 7th bed is a mix of pollinators. So I've got some French marigolds, some Johnny Jump Up wild violets, and some night scented stocks, all going into this bed. And these are designed purely to bring some beautiful colour and some pollinating attractors to the garden. Although you can technically eat the marigolds, and sometimes we do put the flowers on salads. Same with nasturtium flowers. And generally I find, I mean, they taste okay, they don't taste bad, but I never think, oh, I really fancy a marigold flower. But what they do is make what can otherwise be a boring salad look very pretty and beautiful, and they taste fine. Nasturtiums, I do often grab the leaves to snack on while I'm in the garden, but that's only really until the peas come, because then they're my favourite garden snack. We really do need to try and grow a lot of peas this year, because peas just never get into the house when we're gardening. We just eat them fresh off the pod, and we've never grown enough to satisfy our own gardening snack habit and get enough in the house to use. So let's hope this year I can grow enough to do both. This final bed is just going to be a bed of flowers, just because I like them, and why not? So I've got 2 different types of baby's breath and some scabiosa going in here. A QIS formula mixture scabiosa. I'm sure at the time I bought them I'd looked at a picture and thought they looked lovely. I cannot for the life of me now remember what they might look like, that particular mix, but I'm sure they're going to look beautiful mixed in with the 2 types of baby's breath. So this one is a Gypsophilia elegans mixed baby's breath. And the other is a Gypsophilia paniculata baby's breath. Oops. Some of those may have just ended up in the path. Never mind. Okay, 8 beds planted. I'm going to cover these with some mesh, which at this stage is purely to protect from pests. The weather, they shouldn't need protecting weather-wise, but I do want any seedlings to be protected from birds and potentially rabbits coming through. Then I'll give them a good water, and then we'll just wait and see what happens. It's when I'm doing jobs like this that I'm so grateful that we've got the rainwater harvesting system that was put in when the extension was built on the house by not the previous owners, but the one before them. And part of the requirements for the permission for the extension was that they put in rainwater harvesting and solar panels for the hot water system. And we're particularly grateful for the rainwater harvesting system. So we have under the driveway, huge 3,000 litre tank topped by a well, which is a little bit twee, if we're honest, but we love it because of what it represents. And that's got a pump on it which we can attach our hose to, and means that we can use fresh rainwater on the garden just with the addition of a hose. So there you have it, my first ever chaos bed. What do you reckon? Would you give it a go?